Now, the former Sraj Board's Justice Samuel Short says it will be very difficult to abolish the death penalty in Ghana's laws. His comments come after Amnesty International called on government to abolish the death penalty by the end of next year. According to Justice Short, the criminal justice system in Ghana is not perfect, and it will only be workable if Ghana holds a referendum rather than government alone being left to decide. Ifwa Evans Chinere reports.
The death sentence and executions report, which Amnesty International publishes every year, highlights the plight of people put on death penalty by their government and seeks ways of organizing a conscious effort to abolish death penalty in the world. The report covers the judicial use of the death penalty from January to December 2017. Launching its 2017 Global Death Penalty Report, Amnesty International said there are better ways of punishing people than killing them. But former Sraj Board's Emil Short says that would be a difficult thing to do.
The death penalty, which is in our constitution, the only way it can be abolished is it is an entrenched provision of the constitution. And therefore, its abolition would have to be, that provision, being an entrenched provision, we'll have to go to a referendum. Now, if the constitutional amendment process is revived and that the amendment of that provision is submitted to a referendum for amendment, 40% of those entitled to vote have to vote. Listen to this carefully. Under our Constitution, for that provision to be amended, 40% of those entitled to vote have to vote, and then 75% of those who voted have to have voted in favor of abolition or of amendment of that provision. I hope you understand what I'm saying. In other words, it's not for the president to say, I have abolished the death penalty. It's a constitutional matter because it is an entrenched provision, and the only way you can get it out of the Constitution is by amending that provision in the Constitution. And to amend it, 40% of those entitled to vote have to vote, and 75% of those who voted have to have voted in favor of the abolition. Now, it is not clear that we will get those figures. Indeed, the evidence is to the contrary.
The last execution in Ghana in 1993 employed a firing squad. Since then, some prisoners have been put on death row. JoyNews' Seth Kwame Boateng shared his experience at one of the prisons.
The lady you mentioned is only 20 years old, and she's been sentenced to death. When you listen to her story, you are persuaded to push for death penalty to be abolished. She was fighting with a friend. She claims that the friend stabbed her, and she showed me the wound, the scar. She also took the knife, stabbed her back, but she died. She was arrested. The case, she was tried. The day she was sentenced, no family member was even there. So the father had gone to the Tamale prisons to deliver food, to give her food. He got there and he was told, your daughter has been sentenced to death. So some of the cases, probably if they have had lawyers, the verdict would have been different. But here's the case: because of poverty, they can't contract lawyers. I think this is the reason we must all be concerned, because it can happen to you.
According to Amnesty International's report, 21,919 people were known to be on death row at the end of 2017 around the world. Out of this number, 160 are in Ghana. The International Human Rights Group says they have developed a strategy to convince people out there to change their mindsets on death penalties.
The first is that we will need to do some mobilization, talking to key stakeholders. We need to engage with society. It is important that we recognize as society we have some deficit in terms of the knowledge that people hold, the reasons why people believe in the death penalty. And we need to explain to people the deficits related to that kind of knowledge, why it is important, why other societies have removed it, and why we should also remove it, because we sincerely believe that the political leaders know, the academics know, important people in Ghanaian society know, people in the media have been exposed, and they do know that the death penalty doesn't solve any problem. If you look at Europe, they don't have death penalty. Has crime increased? Look at the societies where they have death penalty. Crime is rather on the increase. We have had death penalty in Ghana for so many years, and crime hasn't decreased. So maybe a lot of education needs to be done.
Amnesty International opposes the death penalty in all cases without exception, regardless of the nature of circumstances of the crime. Ifwa Evans-Chinui for Joy News.
That's a debate that's been ongoing for a very long time, and now that Amnesty International has jumped onto it, let's speak to Robert Amoafo. He is the country director of Amnesty International Ghana. Robert joins us via Skype. Robert, thank you for your time this afternoon. Now, you're getting onto this call for the abolishment or the removal of the death penalty. It appears that Justice Emil Short lays the foundation, or he lays down what needs to be done. Does this stop your campaign, or will it actually give it the necessary strength, if you like, to move on?
Thank you very much for engaging us on this, and we are very happy to talk about the need for the abolishment of the death penalty.
And Robert, now, before you go on, sorry, Robert, before you go on, if you could zoom out a bit or step behind the camera a bit farther away from the camera, so we could see your face, because I was just seeing your cheeks.
Okay.
Very well.
Can you see me now?
I do see you, but if you could you still need to pull out a little more, so I can see you. All right. It looks a little better now. So I was saying, we've just been listening to Justice Emil Short, who was at the program, and at the program he did say that it is not in the power of the president to remove the death penalty. For the death penalty to be removed, we'll need a referendum. Does that, what does that do to your campaign, by the way?
So, first of all, as you mentioned, the key thing is that it strengthens the campaign. It gives us more power, and then it gives us more opportunity to explore the opportunities that there are within the various strategic advocacy platforms that there are. As was mentioned by one of the speakers at the event, we are looking at education. I mean, because one of the key things we found in our work is lack of knowledge, and then also awareness about the issue of the death penalty. Now, it's obvious that if you walk on the streets of Accra and you ask anybody about if we should kill a murderer or a thief, they would say yes. But if you go further to ask them about their religion and where they come from, and then some other things they associate with, whether those things would approve of somebody being killed because of what they've done, you realize that we can go further where the person might come to the side on our side. So we are going to explore education. We are going to use other advocacy means. Now we can call on the president to put a moratorium on death penalty. I mean, to give us some time to look at other means of which we can put a hold on death penalty and look at how we can take advantage of other opportunities that there are, and also to re-engage the constitutional review process when it's put across, so that we can take advantage of what it presents us.
So do you have a timeline, Robert? Are you looking at any specific timeline now, and how far are you willing to go? My final question.
So one, we are looking at working within 2019 to ensure that we increase our education and get people talking about death penalty. But we are also looking at resurrecting the constitutional review process, which has been stalled, so that we can take advantage of removing the constitutional provision on death penalty. Okay. So though we envisage that the constitutional review process will take a long time, we're also looking at taking advantage of other advocacy strategies within 2019, from now to 2019, to increase our issues within the public.
Robert, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Robert Akoto-Amoafo there, he's a country director of Amnesty International Ghana, speaking of what they intend to do as far as abolishing the death penalty is concerned.